Alright, so let's continue. If after knight f3 black plays a6 instead of this bishop c5 stuff which we saw previously. e6 a6, like in the Sicilian Khan variation, because white can't go to the b5 d5 squares because the black pawns are controlling that. He would like to play in this style here. Let's see what can we do with white. Bishop c4, this is the normal development continuation, and b5. Let's see how about if he doesn't come with the opponent, he would like to come with the knight move, knight development. Okay, knight c6 is transposing to another main line, which we will see later. But how about, for example, knight e7? Of course, knight e6 could have been met by e5. So it's very important, if we have played this kind of variations, gambit variations, then we have to punish the opponent if he can come out with the knight, for example, immediately attack with this e5. And knight has to escape, then it's not a good business for him. So that's why usually they come to e7. Now we can immediately imagine that, oh, how good would be that if the knight arrived d6 and smother mate. But of course this is not possible, because knight b5, then it is hanging, e5, knight e4 is too slow, so we don't have option for that. So simply castle. Sometimes just the normal development is the most important. Knight g6 and bishop g5. We already met with this kind of development, so it's completely normal. And bishop e7. Yeah, because if, for example, queen c7 instead, queen c7 would be question mark, because rook c1, very smart continuation, exclamation mark. Because on the c file I have a really strong attack, so for example queen c4 would be losing immediately as I jump somewhere with the knight. Maybe I can go to e2 also, doesn't matter, because threatening to take it for checkmate. So he has to sacrifice his queen. And in case of knight c6, so this is already a deep chess. We don't have to think about only those things. When the opponent attack, we escape immediately, because that's too simple. Let's play a bit more deep chess. Knight c6. And also this is a very typical move which is coming. Knight d5 exclamation mark. E takes d5. E takes d5. And knight ce5. So it's very typical nice piece sacrifice, especially then when we have a great pin here and very dangerous threat on the e file and on the c file. Knight ce5, bishop b3. So that's why this is interesting, because we don't win back the material immediately, we just play normally. So bishop b3, and what can he do here? We are attacking him on the c file. He can block with the bishop, or the queen can escape. How about if he goes, for example, d6, then knight takes e5, knight takes e5, rook e1, very good move, f6, and f4. So of course we also don't escape with the bishop. Instead, we also play a great attacking move. F takes g5, f takes e5, queen b6 check, and king h1. Go out of the check. Still we have a clear piece down, but our pawns are extremely strong. And again, how about his development? Only the queen came out, which is alone not a big value. Bishop b4, okay, still this is a good idea to developing by tempo, and in next move he would like to play castle. So of course, where should we go with the rook? To f1, and prevent the castle on the f-file. King d8. Very strange move. But okay, what else? Very hard to play for him. For example, let's say if he comes with d6. He would like to come out with the c8 bishop. But then we have a very strong queen h5 check, g6, queen takes g5. And actually he's in a big trouble here. Maybe we have even bishop a4 check as a nice intermediate move also. But this queen g5 is also strong, and white is very, very good here. At least clearly better. If I don't have another idea, I can play e6 and rook f7 also. Obvious, very nice compensation for the piece. So we discussed that queen h5 is a strong threat. That's why king d8 was the main move, but it also doesn't help because I can play d6 and then I just go forward, for example queen h5 or queen d5. He can't move with the d pawn, so also this d6 pawn is a very strong spike, very unpleasant spike in his position. Moreover, for example, another motif, if the queen can go to the f-file, we are threatening with back rank checkmate also. So white is winning here, so black has a hopeless king position right now. Okay, let's go back. This was the queen d6, and how about the bishop c5? Bishop c5 doesn't seem to be so good because he put the bishop to a pin. It doesn't seem to be so good. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and bishop e3. d6, bishop takes c5, d takes c5, and it just seems to be okay for black, but always in the last moment we have d6 and he can't protect himself, so his position is hopeless. But okay, let's see why. For example, the queen goes to, let's say, b6, but we can play rook e1 then, and if f6, okay, at least, yeah, that's why he went with the queen to b6, because if f4, then he could play c4 discover check and win our bishop. But probably now we have a nice tactical motif with rook takes e5, f takes e5 and queen h5 check, because g6 is not working as queen takes e5 and take the rook also. If the king escapes to d8, only move because f8, then queen f7 checkmate. Or if d7 also doesn't seem to be good, maybe it will be checkmate pretty soon. So king d8. And now we have queen g5 check, and it also leads to a checkmate, like let's see, king d7, queen e7, king c6. How do we give checkmate? Maybe bishop a4 check, king d5, rook d1, king, doesn't matter, queen h4, king here, bishop c2, king e6 and queen e7. Nice checkmate in the end. So that's why after d6 his situation was already hopeless. Let's go back. So this was the queen c7. So queen c7 wasn't a good move because after this rook c1 with knight c6 he couldn't cover the c file because of this knight d5. Let's see how about bishop e7, the normal developing move. Moreover, black is happy to exchange the dark squared bishop and simplify the position also with the material down for white. So bishop e7, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, queen d4, just go forward with the queen, and castle. This is the most natural because queen d4 is a provoking move. We would be happy to provoke e5 because then the queen can go to b6, and that is a nice weak square. That's why the dark squared bishops exchange is kind of favor for white, because then the dark squares are even weaker than before. Knight d5 can come, jump here, so it's unpleasant. Castle, knight d5, and white is very good here. So castle, I think, is more natural. It's also a developing move, also protecting the g7, so it's completely normal. Queen b6 exclamation mark, knight c6. So we ourselves also we go to b6, rook fd1, queen b4, queen takes b4, knight takes b4, and rook d6. Rook is just coming here. And we also block his pawn. So d6 square is a critical. White usually turn there with many pieces. Bishop, queen, rook now, sometimes the knight, sometimes even pawn. Rook e8. And after rook a d1, we can say that white has also good compensation for the pawn. Let's play also a few moves to understand completely. For example, if he plays b5, logical move, maybe with bishop b7 he wants. However, it's not easy for him because the d7 will be always hanging. So we go back with the bishop, maybe f1 or e2. Let's say e2, maybe rook a7. Try to activate from c7. a3, knight c6, and we can just play normally, for example g3 now, a little bit restrict the opponent knight, freeze the g2 square for the king, and this is just fine. Let's say this is compensation, because even if he jumped to e5, we can trade it and then f4. So thanks for the flexible pawn structure, white can come quickly, even with the king also. So black pawn up doesn't matter at all. It would be very important a dark square bishop here to e7, and then black would be okay. But without that, it's nothing. Alright, so this was the all knight e7. Let's see the critical b5. Bishop b3 and bishop b7. Let's see if he would come with bishop c5. With this move we met already several times. Castle and bishop b7. If knight e7 instead, then looks a normal developing move. Also, why on e7, why not f6? Because e5. Moreover, followed by knight e4 now, so he's in a big trouble. So knight e7, but here white also gets initiative with knight g5. So we just go forward here. Knight g6. Yes. Because, yeah, knight g5, queen h5, this is the attacking plan. But for example, if he would play h6, like a logical move to chase away the knight, then we have already a nice tactical motif. Knight takes f7. This was the idea behind knight g5, by the way. And queen h5, and we immediately can see a hanging piece here. With a double attack, we win back his bishop. And materially equal, white is completely winning here. Bishop pair and no material down, black king is weak, dark squares are weak, so this is just a dream position, a completely winning dream position for white. So let's go back here. Instead of h6, let's see how about knight g6. This is still a normal move, but then I can go with my queen to h5. This is the problem with this type of openings when the knight is not on f6. The queen can come to h5 and it takes a very unpleasant pressure on the pawns. Moreover, after this, there is immediately a horizontal threat, like knight takes f7 and the c5 bishop is hanging for free. b4. And now coming a brilliant move. I like this move so much. Doesn't escape with the knight. White. Bishop e3 exclamation mark, but I would give 2 exclamation mark for it because it's so brilliant, this move. Let's see what is the point. Of course, attack the bishop, so if bc3, bishop c5 is obviously very good for white. Maybe the rook goes to here, and if d6, then maybe bishop just goes to d4, and black never can castle because always checkmate on h7. g7 is weak, b2 is also weak, so he has several problems. So let's see, the bishop h7 is the main. Let's see, bishop takes e3. How about he exchange and take the knight? This is the first question which we can consider, but then very quickly we can see knight takes f7 and it's winning immediately because the rook will be free. So it doesn't matter there is a piece down, because for example the queen goes somewhere and we will take a clear rook. Not only an exchange because it's pinned, it's a clear rook. Okay, how about if he would like to start with kind of f6? Also doesn't help because knight takes h7. And not only for the h7 pawn, because of the g6 knight. That is his main problem. And if he plays kind of king f7, then knight g5 check. And then queen takes g6. This is one of the options. But we have, for example, knight d5 also. It's even a bit more smart because sometimes we can take on f6, nice sacrifice, or if he takes, then queen is also very dangerous if I take and queen f7, but at least we take with the bishop and the rook is hanging on a8. So bishop takes e3. This is the problem with bishop takes e3. He can't do anything there because otherwise how can he protect the f7? No possible. Queen e7 didn't protect because still I will take there. Castle is not working. Rook f8. Also I can't imagine it can be good. Maybe I just go somewhere with the knight. Hopefully go forward. Threatening with knight h7 also sometimes. If he takes, then I take with the bishop, and then on f7 he's also hanging. But maybe first I take here, and I will take with the queen here, and we can feel that black is in a big trouble, very big trouble. So let's see how about the bishop a7. It's kind of maybe a safer move. He would like to keep the tension and keep closing the f-file. But now white also arrives, knight d5 exclamation mark. And in case of e takes d5, knight takes f7, another great continuation, and queen takes d5, and he will get checkmate. Maybe king e7, let's see how do we give checkmate with bishop g5 now. King f8, queen f7, and every other move met by queen f7 except king f6, because then bishop g5 is checkmate immediately. So it's a very nice tactical blow again. How about h6? And after h6, yeah, so in this position when our pieces are so brilliant, like here, we have to think about how we have to expect for that, how we will crush his position. Also knight takes f7 arrives, king takes, and e5. e5 is also brilliant move. Why e5? What is the point of e5? It's simply awesome, this move, because why? First of all, we've prepared for bishop c2, and this knight is lost. Secondly, we also gain some space with that, and sometimes even f4, f5 can also come. Sometimes even knight f4 also, and we prevent the queen f6. Bishop b7, and now coming the real surprise, rook a d1, brilliant continuation. I don't think this is the only one, so I'm sure something knight move like take it can be also okay, but let's see the most brilliant. I like that, to continue the principles. We don't escape back, we just want to attack him as much as possible. Bishop d5, rook d5, so of course with the rook, this is which really win material back, because this is nothing. Yes, we just win back a pawn, so still two knights down. But if the rook, and if he takes, then we really win back, because check, king has to go somewhere, and okay, I even can take the knight also, rook also, but maybe we can checkmate him after bishop g5. I think this is the, or win his queen, this is the strongest which we can imagine. Okay, very smart. Let me show why. Because if takes, then queen check, and it will be checkmate on f7 next. Okay, so queen h4. Very important to find counterplay for him also, because yeah, because otherwise hopeless. Queen f3, of course white doesn't exchange queens, and king e7. Yeah, he tries to escape somewhere. If he would go to g8, maybe it's even worse, because we have some kind of rook move back, maybe here, knight c6, and can I take on d7? I think I can, because if knight g5, I have bishop takes e6, and it will be checkmate soon. King h7, queen f5, knight g6, what a nice checkmate takes, and queen f7, and he has to resign. So king e7, another, now again, a brilliant rook move. It's extremely beautiful. Rook c5 exclamation mark. We close the bishop diagonal, but we sacrifice up and exchange again. Awesome move. Knight c6. If bishop takes c5, bishop c5, king e8, then queen takes a8, and white is winning, because materially also equal, and he lost almost the knight on b8, so he is hopeless here. Or knight c6, rook takes c6 exclamation mark, knight takes e5, because if d takes, then queen takes c6, and white is winning. Now we have a clear rook down, but let's see why winning. Threatening with queen takes e6 first of all, threatening with queen d6 check also, threatening to give check on the 7th rank and then take the rook. So I even can't imagine what can he play. For example, let's say knight takes e5, queen takes e6, king f8, queen takes e5. At least we just take back the material. Now we have a bishop and a pawn for the rook, so this is already materially also not so bad, but look how is the black king. Very bad, hopeless position. How about knight takes e5? Then rook takes e6, double exclamation mark again, simply brilliant play. D takes, queen b7 check, this was the point. But it's so sharp, it's a bit hard to follow, so let's analyze a little bit together. King f6. Of course the king can't go to the back rank, because the rook is always hanging for check, and after the bishop also and everything. If he blocks with the knight, then I take his bishop, and yeah, bishop c5 is also coming on d7. It's also p in which I can continue the pressure on that. So, and also material only exchange down with bishop pair. We can feel that this is a great counterplay again. How about if the king goes out to f6? Then we have actually the same story, just bishop takes a7, and white is winning. Okay, perfect. Yeah, no possible to imagine what he will do here. Okay, let's play still a few moves, maybe rook a d8. But then f4. I even start to open the f file also, and if he jumps to knight g4, then h3. Knight is suddenly trapped. So this is not easy at all for him. Alright, okay, so let's go back a little bit. This was the knight e7, knight g5, where we had immediately a quick attack on the king's side by queen g5, queen h5. How about bishop b7? This is a really normal move. Bishop f4. This we already saw before. If we have option, we will go with the bishop to d6. Knight e7. How about d6? If he plays d6, then also the bishop is a little bit cutting out, and simply we can come with rook c1, or queen d2 is also okay, followed by rook a d1 and attack the d6. So yeah, the d6 will be losing in a long term, or even if he push the e5, then so many weaknesses on the light squares and in this diagonal is just a big problem for him. Okay, so knight e7, that's why. Rook c1. Rook c1 is a very typical move, we already experienced that. And the idea is that if he would just continue the development, then we have knight takes b5. And the rook is attacking the bishop. Bishop takes, for example, f2. Rook takes, a takes b5. And I have something good move, for example, bishop c7, queen e8, and anything, maybe knight d4. And white is much better. Yeah, at least much better, but I think these are practically almost the winning position. Even the pawn we will also win back, and his development is similar weak like in previously. So okay, queen b6, h4. h4, what an interesting move, the h4. Why h4? Because he would like to gain some space there, and if castle, just continue with h5. It's good for the knight g6 motif also, because the bishop is just going back and h5 will be a tempo, and in generally also. Queen b6 point was very simple. He protected the bishop and also some pressure on the f2. So this knight takes b5 motifs are not working here. So castle, h5, d6. And yeah, after some time he could play finally the d6, but then I can also provoke the f6 with this bishop move. Okay, now he can't play that because the e6 is hanging. But for example, if he plays kind of knight bc6, I can continue with several weaknesses. For example, I like h6 also to weaken the dark squares. So if he has to play like this, I'm usually happy. Maybe the bishop can also come here. In somehow we can try to come with the queen. That will be also very dangerous, especially in a practical game. So yeah, his situation is just very hard here.